The purpose of this film is to transport you from Western Australia's second settlement, the Swan River Colony, to its first settlement at Fredericktown. Fredericktown had been founded 2 years earlier, on the 26th of December 1826, as a military outpost of New South Wales, as part of a plan to forestall French ambitions in the region. It was renamed Albany in 1831. The Swan River Colony was established 2 years later in 1829 on the Swan River and was proclaimed and named Perth on the 18th of June 1829. Perth was the first full-scale settlement by Europeans in the western third of the continent. The British colony would be officially designated Western Australia in 1832, but was known informally for many years as the Swan River Colony after the area's major watercourse. Today, Perth is Australia's fourth largest city. The city is overlooked by Kings Park. The park is rich in Aboriginal and European history and is home to the spectacular Western Australian Botanic Garden, which displays over 3,000 species of the state's unique flora. 2/3 of the 400-hectare park is protected as bushland and provides a haven for native biological diversity. It's time to hit the road, and for our journey there are two major options. We can utilise the Great Eastern Highway and travel to Northam or York, or we can take the Toodyay road and make our first destination Toodyay, and that is the option we have chosen to take. Both routes can be accessed via the Roe Highway. Firstly, let me say that the distance from Perth to Albany down the Albany Highway is 400 kilometres. The way we're suggesting is a good 150, 160 kilometres further. So why, you ask, should we go the long way rather than the short way? Well, here's a few thoughts. Trucks. The Albany Highway is a regular trucking route, and there are lots of them. The Great Southern Hwy sees very few trucks. Second point is traffic. As I pointed out, it's only 400 kilometres from Perth to Albany, straight down the highway. Majority of people will travel to get from point A to point B as quickly as they can and in as short a distance as they possibly can. So traffic is a major consideration. And again, there is more traffic on the road every day, every year. The Great Southern Hwy doesn't have that amount of traffic, so you can tootle along and have a good look at the countryside without having to worry about trying to avoid other traffic, trucks, all that sort of stuff. Keep in mind that we're following the railway line, and railway lines by their very nature, when they were first built, towns and sidings were built every 30 to 40 kilometres to service the trains, which at the time were steam. And so as a result, there is more to see down the Great Southern Hwy. Down the Albany Highway, your major points are Williams, Arthur River, Gidgegannup, Mount Barker, and then you're in Albany. As you'll find from this DVD, there is an awful lot more to see travelling down the Great Southern Hwy. Every town has its own unique charm and characteristics, and we're going to try and show you as much of that as we possibly can. So sit back, enjoy the trip, and when you come and travel to Albany from Perth, seriously consider doing it down Highway 120, the Great Southern Hwy. Now we will come back to O'Brien Road, but that's off to the left, and that is a wildflower loop. There's a scenic lookout, and along that road is also the memorial to Peter Brock, who was killed there in a Targa West rally incident back in 2006, I believe it was. Little is known of the Aboriginal groups inhabiting the hills region now known as Gidgegannup. However, it seems, according to newspaper reports of the early 1830s, a hills tribe was often in conflict with the Weeps tribe of the Upper Swan area. It is certain to have been a good area for hunting kangaroo and other native animals. There was little settlement in the area apart from small timber cutters until 1886. The district gradually developed into an area for mixed farming.
In the years between the two world wars, the district was named Hampstead Hills. Later, in 1946, it was changed to Gidgegannup after the Gidgegannup Brook, which runs through the area. With population growth, opportunities arose for new businesses and community services like a primary school, a sports oval and other recreational facilities became feasible. Now for many, Gidgegannup is the ideal place to live. A semi-rural community in a beautiful natural setting, yet close enough to Perth CBD and other metropolitan facilities. Now we're going to take a change of direction. We mentioned O'Brien Road. This is 6 kilometres before you get to Gidgegannup, and there's a scenic lookout up here we're going to have a look at. Also the memorial to Peter Brock. Gidgegannup Shire promote this road as one that is part of their wildflower loop. We may or may not be lucky. The road through here is pretty windy. There's also a fair bit of elevation change. This is the first of our wildflowers. We're going to take a look up here to the left. This is where the lookout is, 1 kilometre up the hill, or so it says. The Paruna Sanctuary is operated by the Australian Wildlife Conservatory. It's a private non-profit organisation. Bushwalkers are welcome to go through the reserve, but bookings are essential. At this point, O'Brien Road becomes Clinton Road. This section of road has an unfortunate history attached to it. Legendary motor racing icon Peter Brock was driving in the 2006 Targa West Tarmac Rally when his car slid on a damp patch of road whilst taking this corner and slid into a tree. It is thought that if the tree had hit the car a few centimetres either side of where it did, Brock may have survived the crash. The corner is notorious and a number of motorcyclists have perished there. The offending tree was subsequently removed, and 2 years later, a memorial to Peter Brock was established 200 metres away on the opposite side of the road.
this is the Noble Falls Tavern.
Directly opposite the tavern and accessible via a turn-off a couple of 100 metres along the road is Noble Falls. Noble Falls form part of the Woodanilling Brook. There is a walk trail which adjoins a reserve which is home to many birds and other wildlife. It begins from the Noble Falls picnic and parking area. Dogs are allowed off the leash as long as they are controlled. There are lots of beautiful spots to take a dip or simply just sit on the banks and enjoy the serenity of the bush. There is ample shady parking and plenty of picnic tables. There are fire restrictions on open fires, which are not permitted. However, the picnic area itself has toilets and free electric barbecues. There is a children's park area with swings and slide. The Noble Falls picnic area is not a designated rest area, so unfortunately no overnight camping is allowed. Avon Valley National Park, off to the left.
We're approaching the road to Northam. It's the road we'll be taking once we've had a look at Toodyay. That's it there, the turn off. And this is our first target. And this is the village of Toodyay.
Toodyay is one of the oldest inland towns in Western Australia, and much of its heritage is preserved. The Balladong Noongar people lived in this area for thousands of years before the arrival of Europeans. The people called the area Dooiji, believed to mean place of plenty, and from which the word Toodyay is derived. Ensign Robert Dale was the first English person to discover the Avon Valley in 1830. He reported that the region was fertile and possessed a good supply of water. Over the next 5 years, colonists took up Avon Valley land grants in the Toodyay area. The town site of Toodyay was established 5 kilometres downstream from the present town site, at a bend in the river. A small town grew there with the government and commercial buildings, although it was subjected to regular flooding. By the 1850s, there were 3 inns and 2 schools as well as a jail. Because of the flooding, the town of Newcastle was surveyed in 1860. In 1910, the federal government asked the council to change the name of the town because of confusion with the town of the same name in New South Wales. The name of the town was changed to Toodyay. The narrow gauge railway arrived in 1887 and served the community until 1966, when it was replaced by the current standard gauge line. The old courthouse has been used as municipal offices for Toodyay since the 1950s. The main part of the building was constructed in 1896 and opened in January 1897. It replaced the first courthouse on the site, built in 1867. In 1902, after only 5 years of use, the last resident magistrate was withdrawn and the building was vacated. On the 1st of January 1959, the Toodyay Road Board moved into the restored courthouse building. Welcome to the Newcastle Jail. It was built in 1865 to replace two previous lockups at Old Toodyay, now West Toodyay, and Newcastle. The building was designed by architect Richard Roach Jewell, who was also responsible for the pensioners' barracks in Perth, of which only the entrance arch now stands at the top of St George's Terrace. The building was last used as a jail in the early 1900s. The building came to be used as a private residence, and from 1929 through to about 1945, the Doritzi family lived there. The sons slept in the cells. The boys joined the Australian Army, and in 1945, three of the brothers died at the hands of their enemy captors. One cell is now dedicated to them and to all local servicemen and women who did not return home. After World War II, for nearly 20 years, the building slowly deteriorated until a restoration program was undertaken in 1962, and the museum began. In the 1850s, a Welshman became infamous in Western Australia as a convict, an escapee, and a hero of the average man from the bush. Not quite a bushranger, but worse than just a horse thief. Joseph Belitho Johns became better known by his nickname Moondine Joe.
It needs to be said that Toodyay is an ideal day trip from Perth as well. If you decide that you don't want to drag the van out here and then take it on down through Northam to York, you prefer to start at Midland and travel to York up via the lakes, then this area out here is a wonderful day trip area. Around about an hour from Perth, or from Midland, there's a lot to see. Now time for us to travel down to Northam. At this point you are running right alongside the Avon River. You have an option at this point in time to go into Northam via a scenic drive, which turns to the left. This goes around through Katrine Road, or you can continue on to Northam along this particular road, the Northam Toodyay Road. It's really nice country through here. Got the Avon River running just to the left of us, to the north. And to the south, or on the right hand side, the railway, right alongside the road. This is all part of the Avon Valley. Really picturesque drive through here.
Northern grain silos are the first of three commissioned by grain handler CBH to be transformed by urban art. The other silo murals are at Ravensthorpe and Merredin.
Northam has been blessed with the Great Eastern Highway bypass. That's the overpass just going past us there. Apparently Northam wasn't happy with the amount of traffic running through the town and supported the idea of the bypass, and is now finding that traffic has reduced quite enormously, which of course has a financial effect on the town's businesses. I sometimes wonder whether enough thought is given to the design and the effects overall of what a bypass is going to do to a town. Right in front of us are the Northam flour mills. They've been there forever, and they are still a going concern today.
Northam is the largest town in the Avon region. It is also the largest inland town in the state, not founded on mining. The area around Northam was first explored in 1830 by a party of colonists led by Ensign Robert Dale, and subsequently founded in 1833. The arrival of the railway made Northam the major departure point for prospectors and miners heading east towards the goldfields. A number of older buildings have local heritage significance and still serve the community. We've chosen to do a tour of the main shopping area where many of these buildings are situated. A cruise around the back streets of the town precinct will reveal many more of the town's historic buildings. During World War I, Wilberforce, an area on the Spencer Brookton York Road, was the area set up for the breeding and selection of horses to be transported to overseas theatres of war involving Australian horsemen, in particular the iconic 10th Light Horse Regiment. During World War II, Northam was the location of a number of important strategic military camps, depots and installations. During the 1940s and 50s in Northam, there were extensive camps for displaced persons and immigrants from continental Europe. The Northam Migrant Accommodation Centre closed in September 1951. A significant number of these post-war arrivals eventually settled in the Northam area. Northam is a major railway junction and serves as the commercial centre for much of the western wheat belt. The dual-gauge Eastern Railway terminates here and becomes the standard gauge Eastern Goldfields Railway. Narrow gauge radiates both south of the town to Albany and north to Gwambygine. The original station on Fitzgerald Street was opened in 1900 and closed in 1966 when the new Eastern Railway route became operational. The Avon Descent is one of Western Australia's oldest and greatest sporting events and attracts competitors and spectators from throughout Australia and the world. Avon Descenters challenge the Avon and Swan Rivers in a variety of paddle and powercraft in an exciting 2-day time trial over 124 gruelling kilometres. The Avon Descent was first held in 1973 with just 49 competitors, no rules, no officials, no checkpoints and very few spectators. In the years since, over 35,000 people have competed in the Avon Descent, from novices and families to world champions and Olympic competitors.
So we leave town to the sign of the American Embassy, and we're now heading towards York. Straight on is to Quaranting and Bruce Rock. Right is to Beverley and York. Or if you prefer, York and then Beverley.
York is the oldest inland town in Western Australia, situated 97 kilometres east of Perth. The York district and town took its name from York County. The area was first settled in 1831, 2 years after Perth was settled in 1829. With the increasing population of the Swan River settlement in 1830, it became evident that suitable land would have to be discovered for the growing of crops needed to provide necessary food. Ensign Robert Dale, a 20-year-old officer of the 63rd Regiment, led a small party in the first exploratory journey over the Darling Range during the winter months of 1830 into what was later to be known as the Avon Valley. As a result, Lieutenant Governor Stirling decided that the new district should be thrown open for selection, and this was done in November 1830. In September 1831, Dale escorted the first party of settlers to the district. They immediately set about the construction of huts, the preparation required for their stock, and the cultivation of new land. A town was established in 1835 with the release of town allotments, and the first buildings were erected in 1836. In July 1836, York comprised 2 houses, a barn, an army barracks and some outhouses with about 50 acres of cleared land. The first decade of settlement in the Avon Valley showed steady progress and a clear indication that the whole district should develop into a rich and prosperous farming area. The railway arrived in 1886. Following the discovery of gold in the Yilgarn in 1887, the town was teeming with miners, all alighting from the train and preparing to make the long journey across the plains to the goldfields. York has many important heritage buildings, some dating from the 1850s and 1860s. It was during the period 1886 to 1900 that most of the town's impressive and very solid buildings were constructed. The entire town site of York has been listed as an historic town on the Register of National Estate of the Commonwealth of Australia. Many of York's older homes and buildings have now been restored, and while some have retained their original use, some others have been adaptively reused with success. The town has adapted by changing from a traditional sheep and wheat agricultural community into a tourist town. It features music festivals, a motor museum, art galleries, recreational facilities including skydiving and paragliding, many bed and breakfast services and the picturesque Avon River.
There's an RV parking area right beside the river. There's a playground there for the kids, picnic tables, self-contained vehicles only. You don't dump any of your water and that sort of stuff on the ground. So a nice little area here in York where you can stay virtually overnight anyway. We're going to go up and have a look at Mount Brown Lookout. Mount Brown has been the venue for hill climbs, and it's up this hill that it used to happen. A bit windy for the next kilometre, it tells us. Just near the summit of Mount Brown there is a picnic area. We'll duck in and have a look at that. Gas barbecues, toilet and tables and shelters. All very nice. It's time to leave York, and our next port of call is Beverley. Just a few kilometres south of York is Gwambygine. We're going to go and have a bo peep of that. There is a walk of about 400 metres, walkers along the river, to a viewing tower. Within the park here is camping, and there are gas barbecues, picnic tables and ablution block. There is interpretive signage throughout the park. There is a boardwalk here, but as the sign says, currently closed, and that is September 2017. So if you're looking for somewhere to stop the night and you want to stop by the river and have a bit of a wander around and study the nature, Gwambygine could be the place to do it. That's 11 kilometres from York. There are some farm stays along the route here. Lavendale is one. Here we are, 200 metres down the way. And that's where you go in. This drive through here is simply gorgeous at this time of year. Gently undulating hills, green pastures, green crops. It does, however, dry out in the summer season. We have arrived at Beverley. Beverley's another one of those towns where the highway, as you can see, just goes straight on. And the town is to the left. And it is well worth turning left and going down the main street and investigating what this town has to offer. Let's show you what we mean.
Beverley was one of the first areas in Western Australia opened for agriculture. The first in the Beverley district was taken up by the colonial surgeon, Dr. Charles Simmons, in January 1831. It is a common belief that Beverley was named after Beverley in Yorkshire, which was Dr. Simmons' home. The Beverley town site was established around 1868. A pipeline to connect Beverley with the Goldfields water supply scheme was completed in 1908, and the first powerhouse to generate electricity for the town was established under private ownership in 1913. A walk along Vincent Street will reveal Beverley's interesting architecture, with examples ranging from the colonial period of the late 1880s to the 1930s Art Deco style, and an example of a late 1960s geodesic dome. In 1886, the Southern Rail link from Perth was extended to Beverley, which was the terminus for 3 years until the connection to Albany was established 3 years later. Built in 1886 in the Victorian Tudor style, the Beverley railway station was the hub of activity when Beverley was an important stop on the Perth to Albany passenger line. Closed in October 1984, the railway station fell into disrepair. It was restored in 2006. The railway station now displays the Beverley Council Art Collection. Behind the station is the amphitheatre and stage that comprise the platform theatre, where many of the summer events are held in Beverley. The Dead Finished Museum is the oldest building in Beverley. Originally the Wheatsheaf Inn, it was built by Alfred Smith in 1872. It now houses a very fine collection of artefacts depicting life in Beverley since settlement in 1831. The museum is open every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. from mid-March to November, and at any other time as requested. There is a small admission fee. The Avon River flows through the town, and there is a picnic area on the banks of the Beverley Town Pool where you can look for a variety of bird life. There is also a 48-hour area provided for self-contained RVs and caravans. No tent camping is allowed.
We're going to go out to Yenyenning Lakes and have a look out there, and we'll tell you more about that when we get there.
Yenyenning Lakes are about 32 kilometres southeast of Beverley. The lakes drain water from as far away as Southern Cross, over 300 kilometres to the east, and are at times full of saline water. Yenyenning Lakes are a haven for bird life and are also used for water sports. The Beverley Soaring Society is the largest gliding club in Western Australia and also the closest to metropolitan Perth, being less than 2 hours away by car. They have a large club fleet of 3 two-seat aircraft, 2 single-seat aircraft and 2 Pawnee tow planes. Their members also have some 37 privately owned gliders at the club's airfield. A panel of qualified, highly experienced instructors are rostered on Friday, Saturday and Sunday of each weekend to teach the skills of soaring to anyone from a teenager through to airline pilots with thousands of hours of experience. The club also offers air experience flights if you just want to experience the thrill of gliding. The club has a strong cross-country flying ethic and ranks near the very top of the world in the online gliding competition. The club's performance coaches also provide advanced soaring and cross-country skills to its members.
Once again, it's time to depart, and we'll head back onto the Great Southern Highway, and our next stop is Brookton. I love the way that the road at times is an avenue. Mind you, you wouldn't want to run off the road and collect one of those trees. They wouldn't move. I did mention earlier on about trucks. Well, as in the My Way song, trucks there's been a few, but too few to mention. However, it is hay carting season right at the moment. So you will see the odd one or three down this way, but not like on the other highway, where they are plentiful. And so we approach Brookton. Come up to a T-junction here, you go left to Corrigin, then we turn right to go into Brookton. Our main segment on Brookton was shot on a Sunday when we came down here. This is a weekday, this is Tuesday. So we'll have a look through the town and see what a difference it is during the week. To be fair to the town. And it's a different story. Brookton is divided by the railway line. The Great Southern Highway runs on the other side, and if you're coming up from the south, you would probably bypass the town. Please cross the railway line and have a look at the town site and go in and buy a coffee and support the locals.
The first settler and founder of the Brookton district, John Seabrook, moved to the area in 1846 and named his property Brookton House. During the 1860s and 1870s, more settlers moved into the area and took on sandalwood cutting as well as wheat and sheep farming. In June 1889, when the Great Southern Railway opened, Brookton was one of the original stations. The station proved to be the catalyst that created the centre for the isolated farms, and the government gazetted the town site here in 1895 and named it Seabrook. But local acceptance of the station name and confusion with another Seabrook near York resulted in the town site's name being changed to Brookton in 1899. The town site attracted a few businesses, and by 1903 the tiny settlement comprised a school, hotel, bank and a few shops. The old police station museum located in the town is the base of the local historical society and contains artefacts and memorabilia of the early settlement days. In years gone by, Perth used to close down at midday on Saturday and reopen on Monday morning. Small country towns also tend to still follow this practice. We visited both Brookton and Pingelly on a Sunday and the weekend closure was still in evidence. However, the roadhouse at the juncture of the Brookton Highway and Great Southern Highway was a hive of activity as a steady stream of traffic pulled in for a break from their journey. It seems a pity that the Great Southern Highway, being situated on the opposite side of the railway line to the town centre, tends to divert traffic past the shopping precinct. An obvious effect of ring roads, bypasses and the division created by a railway line in many parts of the country.
It's time to leave Brookton. As you can see, the Brookton Highway is on the other side of the railway line to where the town is. Please don't bypass the town. Call through and have a look and say good day to the locals. It's the town centre to the left. Approaching the turn off to Wagin Rock. Just before the Wagin Rock turn off, which goes to the right, there's Kulyaling town site, or what used to be the town site, just off to the left. And there's a little picnic area type thing in there. We'll go and have a quick look. Sign as we come in, Kulyaling school site, 1904 to 1946.
There is a memorial at the site of the old school commemorating the pioneers of Kulyaling and the district. A railway siding named Westbrook was the origin of the town. The siding was established in 1905 and then the local Progress Association petitioned for a town site to be declared. The town site was gazetted in 1906 as Westbrook, but the Lands Department sought to change the name as Westbrook was already in use. Two Aboriginal names were considered, Woodanilling and Kulyaling. The name was changed and the town was gazetted in 1907. The name of the town comes from the Aboriginal name for a local water source and rock formation, but the meaning is unknown. Founded in Kenya in 1922, Men of the Trees is now active in many countries including two mainland states in Australia. In Western Australia, the Society has been active since 1979. Today, more than 2,000 members and volunteers collectively grow and plant more than 500,000 trees in a season. In Western Australia, they dedicate their greatest efforts to improving biodiversity and combating salinity and soil erosion by planting native trees and understory.
That's 17 kilometres in, and it's a dirt road. Wagin Rock. Wagin Rock Reserve, it's a narrow road, limited turnarounds and passing areas, and it is not suitable for caravans. So maybe park your van up in Brookton or maybe Pingelly and then come out here and do a day trip or something. So we enter the Wagin Nature Reserve. It had been my intention to climb the rock, but 2 days ago I twisted my ankle, and that has decided that that ain't going to happen. Now this is a day use area.
That's the rock just beyond the trees. So the Boyagen Rock is a day use area. There's no camping, no open fires, no pets are permitted at Boyagen Rock area or within the Boyagen Nature Reserve. There's 1080 liberally spread throughout the place, so if you take your animals in, there's no great guarantee that they're going to come out feeling well. There are basic ablutions here. Here we are back at the Great Southern Highway, and we continue on our way to Pingelly. Again, we came through Pingelly on a Sunday. That was pretty quiet. There's a bit more action here happening at the moment. It is a Tuesday. We're going to go out and have a look at the original town site of Pingelly before the railway line came through, a place called Murrumbine. Murrumbine is 9 kilometres out of town on the Wickapin Road. The Murrumbine Heritage Trail up there to the left. Just have a quick look here. The first settler in the area was Mr. Lewis John Bailey, who was granted 4,000 acres for grazing in 1846 around the Murrumbine Spring. The land was surveyed in 1856 and a permanent settlement established around 1860. The community built a church, school, store and jail. On the 24th of April 1884, the Murrumbine town site was gazetted. The Murrumbine School served the district until 1924, when the school was closed due to insufficient numbers. The children were then transferred to Pingelly. The opening of the Great Southern Railway 10 kilometres west of Murrumbine in 1889 marked the beginning of Murrumbine's gradual decline. Pingelly was gazetted on the 4th of February 1898. A spring of water east of the railway crossing was named Pingelly, an Aboriginal name for watering place. From this, the present name of Pingelly was derived. Pingelly attracted many settlers from the goldfields who were looking for an alternative and more secure means of income. In addition to farming, other profitable industries of the time included sandalwood, mallet bark and animal skins. In September 1906, telephone communications were established between Pingelly and Popanyinning. By 1907, a telegram lodged at Wagin took 5 hours to reach Pingelly. During 1908, a telephone exchange was established and the connections extended to Narrogin and Beverley. 8 gas streetlights were installed in 1906 and in 1912 the service was electrified. The Pingelly Murrumbine Road Board offices were built in Pingelly in 1909. Just a few years later, in 1913, Murrumbine was dropped from the title. In 1961, the Pingelly Road Board became the Pingelly Shire Council, and newest Shire offices were built on the site on which they still stand today. So leaving Pingelly and heading towards Popanyinning. Popanyinning was originally named Popanying, which stands for waterhole in the Aboriginal language. The name came about from a large waterhole that was situated just outside of the town and was used by Aborigines and wild brumbies from around the district. Years later, the name was changed to Popanyinning, but no one is really quite sure why. The birth of the township of Popanyinning can be attributed to both the construction of the Great Southern Hwy and the desire of pioneers to settle within the perimeter of the town site. The first pioneers arrived in 1893, and in 1898 pioneer railway construction workers and their families arrived. By 1906 there were 72 families registered within the Popanyinning district. The town boasted a blacksmith's, general store and post office, mixed goods store and a bakery. On the 2nd of April 1906 the Popanyinning Hotel was officially opened. However, on 9th of July 1978 it burnt down and has never been replaced. Just 4 kilometres from Popanyinning is the Laserway farm stay, caravan park and a little golf course in there. Yornaning is an Aboriginal word meaning many waters. The dam was built in 1896 to provide water for steam locomotives on the Albany to Perth railway. Yornaning town boasted a school, a post office general store and a railway station with refreshment rooms. Up until 1958 the dam was one of the most reliable and freshest regional water sources, and up to 3 trainloads of water went to Narrogin daily for domestic use in dry seasons. When diesels replaced steam locomotives and Wellington Dam water was piped to Narrogin in 1954, the dam fell into disuse and gradually became polluted and saline. In the Cuballing Land Conservation District Initiative, the Cuballing Shire and local farmers with technical assistance from Murdoch University completely renovated the dam and installed facilities. Having a toilet, children's play equipment and picnic tables in a scenic setting, it is a wonderful picnic spot for all the family. It is also a prime bird watching spot for both land birds and visiting water birds, and wildflowers that can be viewed via the 6 kilometre tourist drive and 1.5 kilometre walking trail. Cuballing is on the other side of the railway line, as are many of these towns, and the main road here bypasses the town itself, but it's well worth taking a right-hand turn and just going over the line and actually having a look at this little town. The name Cuballing is taken from Cuballing Pool, which was discovered by John Forrest in 1870. The Great Southern Railway was completed in 1889, and at this time it was hoped that Cuballing would be picked to become the rail centre, with hopes of expanding it into a large town. However, in 1906, Narrogin was chosen, mainly due to water being readily available. Once it became apparent that the railhead was to be established in Narrogin, there was a steady decline in people coming to settle in the area. The Great Depression in the 1930s caused many farming families to leave their farms and seek a living elsewhere. In 1889, there were 11 residences. In 1895, the Cuballing School opened and reached a peak of 59 pupils in 1913, then closed due to lack of attendance in 1929. In 1898, the original district hall was replaced with a more substantial building of stone. In 1903, the Cuballing Road Board was formed. The district hall was used as their office. The Methodist Church was built in 1904. The first post office served the district until sometime after 1905, when a new brick building was erected. There were 2 butcher shops, the Cuballing Hall, Post Office, Cuballing Coffee Palace, WA Bank, National Australia Bank, 2 blacksmiths, Church of England, Methodist Church, a boarding house and the hotel. Over the years, a number of schools opened and closed as the number of pupils rose and fell. The town of Cuballing has a population of approximately 300 and the whole shire approximately 890.
Next on our list of towns is the first of the big towns on the Highway 120, and that is Narrogin. Narrogin's just built one of these new bypass roads. And again, the bypass tends to keep you on the opposite side of the railway line to where the town is. I guess time will tell how smart that move is. And this is the town of Narrogin.
The name Narrogin is said to have originated from the Aboriginal word Narrogin, meaning place of water, and is named after a large pool on Narrogin Creek. Other sources quote the meaning as place of bats or plenty of everything. The first settlers in the area were sheep herders who had followed water courses and selected property suitable for grazing. The first pastoral and tillage lease of 5,000 acres was taken up in 1853. The town started as a small group of buildings centred on the railway station on the Albany Beverley line. The father of Narrogin, Michael Brown, was responsible for a great deal of building construction in the town, and this in turn attracted new settlers. Narrogin was one of the largest towns on the fringe of the Wheatbelt region. It had 2 hotels, 2 boarding houses, 2 shops, a doctor, a chemist and a small hospital on a hill away from the railway station. Narrogin's emergence as a regional centre for the Central South region can be traced back to the construction of the Great Southern Railway line in the late 1880s. Between 1905 and 1926, new railway lines were constructed to Collie, Wickapin, Condinnon, Dwarda and points beyond. Narrogin remained a major rail centre until the late 1970s, when competition from road transport saw a reduction in the railway's workforce from some 280 people to less than a dozen in 1995.
Well, you need to go out and have a look at Dryandra Village and the woodland. It's 28 kilometres out of town. It's on the wandering road from Narrogin. Now the road coming up on the right, or to the east, goes to Cuballing. We're approaching Dryandra from Narrogin, but it is easily accessible from Pingelly, Popanyinning and Cuballing, as well as Narrogin. So if you want to change your trip to actually do Dryandra Forest, you can access it from any of those 4 towns. Dryandra Village, 3.2 kilometres in. So we'll go and have a look. And there's a couple of kangaroos just bouncing across the road up here. There was a sign back on the road saying, and here's one coming through as well. There was a sign back on the side of the road saying, please slow down for the next 4 kilometres, preserve our wildlife. The kangaroos have a kamikaze attitude through the Dryandra area, so take note. There were a few carcasses on the side of the road as we came. There's plenty through here today. It's the Lions Village, Dryandra Forest Village.
The Lions Dryandra Woodland Village offers affordable, clean and relaxing accommodation that includes 6 large cottages, 2 small cottages, a Currawong complex that provides dormitory-style accommodation, sleeping 56, plus a dining hall within 3 Nissen-style huts. Dryandra Woodland is home to 24 mammal, 98 bird and 41 reptile species, including Western Australia's state mammal emblem, the numbat. At Gnaala Mia, you can take a guided nocturnal tour in a tranquil, predator-proof animal sanctuary that has become home for some of Western Australia's native animals facing extinction. The tour begins once the sun has set and the action begins. The tour guide takes visitors on a delightful journey through the sanctuary.
We're heading towards the Kulyaling and Gnaala Mia campgrounds. They're further on than the Dryandra village. So we're out on the Williams Road, we come to Godfrey Road, and Gnaala Mia Campground is off to the right, and it says tents and it says caravans. Let's have a look. Straight away you're dragging up a hill. That's about 1 kilometre up the road. And then you've got a couple of loops. And your caravan bays to either side. Looks like 12 caravan bays and 12 tent areas. Everything's well spaced. And there's a camp table and chairs supplied with each bay. And then there's a loop going the other way as well. Visiting fees apply, camping fees apply. Each caravan spot is for 1 caravan, 1 car. Tent spot, 1 tent, 2 cars. Generators are allowed, but be courteous. No animals, bring your own water. That's a rough rundown of what it's about. It's time to leave Narrogin. And the next stop on our route is Highbury.
Like many towns, Walwaling came into existence with the construction of the Great Southern Railway. Walwaling was the gazetted name in 1905 and renamed as Highbury in 1906. Immediately before the World War II, 1937-38, the main road between Narrogin and Wagin was built up as a main road. This supplied work for a large number of men at a time when jobs were scarce. It was around the 1950s before it was sealed. It was recorded in February of 1955 that 275 millimetres of rain fell over a few days, resulting in a lot of damage to the countryside. Roads and bridges were washed away, fences torn apart and pastures ruined. In April 1978, Cyclone Albany hit the area, causing great havoc. The town today is little more than a stop on the highway with a store, tavern and a hall, servicing the surrounding agricultural district.
Leaving Highbury, heading for Piesseville.
Piesseville had an interesting time in its early days as it struggled to find an identity. Settled from the 1850s, the first sighting when the railway arrived was called Buchanan River, and the town of Buchanan was gazetted in 1903. Because of a name clash with a town in New South Wales, it was renamed Barton after the former Prime Minister in 1905. However, with the construction of the Trans-Australian Railway, another railway station named after Barton in the South Australian stretch of the Nullarbor Plain led to another name change in 1918, this time to Peace, after two prominent local residents. 5 years later, the town was changed to its present name, its fourth change in 20 years. Piesseville today is more of an agricultural locality. That's the Piesseville Hall, built in 1904 and well hidden in the bush. Then back onto the main road. So having had a look at the Piesseville Hall, as well as the old tavern, we're back on the road again. This time heading for Wagin. This is Wagin. There's a servo on the corner. The cemetery is just opposite the corner. And you turn left to go into town. Right takes you to the Albany Highway. The home of the Big Ram, Wagin's main industries are wheat and sheep farming. The name of the town is derived from Yenyenning Lake, a usually dry salt lake south of the town. The Aboriginal name is Wagin, having been first recorded for the lake by a surveyor in 1869. It is believed that Wagin means emu's watering hole. The first European explorer through the area was John Septimus Roe in 1835. Between 1835 and 1889, a few settlers eked a simple living by cutting sandalwood and shepherding small flocks of sheep. The town itself came into existence after the construction of the Great Southern Hwy, which was completed in 1889, with the town originally called Yenyenning Lake. In 1898, Wagin was proclaimed a town with the word lake dropped. In 1934, the town was extensively flooded after the area experienced 137 millimetres of rain in a short period of time, the heaviest for 20 years. Water over a foot deep flowed through the town hall and along business premises and dwellings along Tudor Street. The railway yards were flooded and the railway dam burst under water pressure. Present-day Wagin is one of the largest towns in the southern wheatbelt region and annually hosts the Woolarama, one of Western Australia's largest agricultural shows. The event, held in March, regularly attracts over 30,000 visitors. Inside the grounds of the Wagin Agricultural Society is an RV free parking area and the usual restrictions. Only this one's a 72-hour. You can actually stay here for 3 nights. Fully self-contained recreation vehicles and caravans. That was Wagin. We're approaching Parkeyerring Lake. Normally this is little more than a salt pan with maybe a bit of water in it. We've had an exceptionally wet winter and an early opening in January, February. The lake is full of water. There hasn't been this much water in this lake for years and years and years. This is right beside the road. It's normally just a salt pan.
We have been fortunate to film this in a winter where we've had plenty of rain and everything is nice and green and lush. I have to say, in the summertime or in the hotter months, it's very much a browner than what you're seeing now. It's still beautiful country. The caravan park right on the corner. So this is the approaches to Woodanilling.
Woodanilling is in a sheep and grain producing area and was named after a spring in the Boyrine Creek, 1 kilometre south of town. The area was first explored by Europeans in 1830-31 in expeditions by Captain Thomas Bannister. Construction of the Albany Hwy in the early 1850s and the Great Southern Hwy in 1889 brought settlers to the area and helped to establish the town, which was gazetted in 1892. The town site is located on an old railway siding that was initially known as Round Pool. In 1895 this was renamed to Yarrabin and finally changed to Woodanilling in 1896. The name Woodanilling is Aboriginal in origin and means either lots of minnows or place where the bronze-winged pigeon nests. An agricultural hall and public school existed in the town prior to 1903. In 1906 the Woodanilling Road Board was formed and the population of the Shire swelled to 800 during its most prosperous period from 1905 to 1920. The foundation stone of the local Baptist church was laid in 1908. The Western Australian Bank branch and new hotel were erected in the town in 1908, along with many improvements being made to the school. The local school was destroyed by a fire in June 1949. The school had 64 students enrolled at the time. By November, the Minister of Education decided that a new primary school would be built, but older students would travel to Katanning for their classes. The dump point is around the Sport and Recreation Centre, and there's also an RV rest area here as well. Maximum 24 hours, no camping. And as with all of these 24-hour rest areas, fully self-contained vehicles, bring your own water, and there's your dump point right there. Now for the next 9 kilometres, it's dead straight road and we're travelling due south, 180 degrees. Coming up to a bend in the road, and on this bend, on the western side of the road, or the right hand side travelling south, there's a little church that you might like to just stop and have a look at. The Marracoonda Baptist Church is built of local stone with locally made brick corners and has a steep pitched corrugated iron gable roof. The interior features wide jarrah tongue and groove flooring and a raised altar. Sadly, the condition of the building makes it unsafe for the public to enjoy its features. The foundation stone was laid by Mrs. Metters, the wife of the Reverend Alfred Metters, who was based at Katanning on the 3rd of June 1903. The Marracoonda name comes from the Marracoonda pools in the nearby Tambellup River. As we approach Katanning, the first feature you will come across is a big roundabout. In years past, because of Katanning standing as a major sheep selling centre, trucks would rumble through the town's streets on their way to the sale yards. In an effort to divert the heavy traffic, the Great Southern Hwy was extended, thus creating a bypass past the town. As with towns cut off from the Hume Highway in Eastern Australia, it was noticed that travellers also tended to bypass the town, and the tourist traffic declined. The placement of the roundabout on the main highway now welcomes travellers. Katanning has a population of around 3,800. The town was founded in 1889 when Perth to Albany Railway was constructed. There are more than 200 heritage-listed buildings and places in Katanning. Places include buildings, structures, gardens, cemeteries, memorials, landscapes and archaeological sites. Entry in the register is reserved for places of state cultural heritage significance and is the highest recognition afforded at the state level. Heritage places are entered in the state register after an assessment and registration process which includes extensive consultation with owners, local governments and other stakeholders. The majority of heritage listed buildings and places in Katanning are of local significance and are listed in the Shire of Katanning Municipal Inventory. There are 15 also on the state register. This statue of Frederick Henry Pease was erected in 1916. The Pease brothers built the roller flour mill in the late 1800s and were prominent in the early establishment of the town. The Pease family constructed Cuballing as the family home. It was used for many years as a girls' boarding school and is now a conference centre managed by the local Baptist church. In 1904, A.E. Pease built this winery to process grapes harvested from the Pease family vineyards. When the winery ceased to produce wine, many of the winemaking tools and casks were sold to the monks at New Norcia, north of Perth. The Parade of Flags is an indication and acknowledgement of the origins and cultural diversity of the town's residents. The Katanning Harmony Festival is a street festival which showcases the positive aspect of Katanning's cultural diversity as the community comes together to offer a festival that promises colour, culture, connection and excitement. It features live entertainment, cooking demonstrations, kids zone, hands-on activities, displays, market stalls and an international food village. When the local abattoir was constructed in the late 70s, a number of Cocos Islanders moved to Katanning to find work. The community integrated easily into the town and currently has a population of around 350. The Shire of Katanning operates the largest undercover sheep selling complex in the Southern Hemisphere. The roof covers 4.2 hectares and the tarmac area covers 6 hectares. The water from the roof is collected in 6 tanks holding 1.5 million litres. This water is used as drinking water for stock, truck washing and treated for canteen use. The tarmac water is collected in dams and in future will be pumped into the upgraded town lake for recreational use. There is a 4.2 kilowatt solar farm on the roof of the canteen. The yards are capable of holding up to 40,000 sheep. Gwambygine was an important meeting place and water source for local Noongar Aboriginals long before European settlement. It came to be known as police pools after the area was used as an outpost of the Gidgegannup police station from 1865 to 1870. It was the original campsite of the first policemen in the Katanning district, enabling them to visit isolated sandalwood cutters and early settlers in the area. With the closure of the police post in 1871 and the settlement of Katanning in 1889, police pools became a highly popular recreational facility. Between 1908 and 1909, Daisy Bates lived at the pools as part of a lifelong association with Aboriginal people. She encouraged greater understanding amongst Europeans of traditional Aboriginal ways. In 1939, the Katanning branch of the West Australian Historical Society erected a cairn to commemorate the first police outpost in the district and those who served there. During the 1950s, there was a further decline in popularity as salinity became a problem, degrading the area. Renewed interest was sparked during the early 1980s, initiating the rehabilitation of the reserve during the 1990s. Local people and agencies carried out much of the extensive rehabilitation and revegetation works, including planting, earthworks, flora and fauna surveys and monitoring. Native flora species have been established along a boardwalk through the wetlands, enabling easy access to the entire site. In 2010, Lake Ullamartup was a hypersaline yellow smelly lake. Then the Lake Ullamartup Working Group, Katanning Landcare, government and community volunteers decided to rejuvenate this 100-hectare lake located 18 kilometres east of Katanning. They planted more than 150,000 trees, removed 20,000 cubic metres of nutrient-rich black sludge and erected 40 kilometres of fencing. A fertiliser runoff trial was established, a water monitoring and stormwater awareness program undertaken, and a recreation area plan was developed. Lake Ullamartup is home to 95 species of birds, including 3 priority species, and is important for late season habitat when other local wetlands have dried up.
Now it's time to leave Katanning as we head south. Our next port of call is Broomehill. Just on the side of the road you'll find a sign just before you reach Broomehill. It says Kulyaling 533 kilometres via the Holland Track and the Holland Way. We'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get into Broomehill.
The town of Broomehill owes its creation to the Great Southern Railway. The town is named after Sir Frederick Napier Broome, who was then the Governor of Western Australia. The town site was gazetted in 1890, which was recognised by the state government in 1897. A group of settlers from the now extinct town of Ettercup moved to the present site of Broomehill to help establish a town site after the construction of the railway was completed. In 1892, a police station and post office were also established. The economy of the area is dependent on wheat and sheep farming, although recently farmers have diversified into viticulture and aquaculture in the form of barramundi farming. The main industry in town is wheat farming, with the town being a cooperative bulk handling receival site. Broomehill has many interesting sights to see, and walking through the village is the best way to see them. The Jones building was built in 1911. This impressive heritage-listed building was the shopping centre of its day, where you could buy everything from flour to bullets. Recently renovated, this building is not to be missed, so drop in to taste or buy local wines or learn about Broomehill's past and future. The Broomehill Post Office has been delivering mail to the Broomehill people for over 100 years and has been recently renovated to include a small gift and stationery shop. Local tourist information and brochures are also available. The museum was built in 1898 and displayed many roles including Town Hall, Mechanics Lodge and Church. Today it contains a treasure trove of interesting machinery and memorabilia. St Elizabeth's Church was originally built in 1892 as a police station and is open daily. Holland Park in the centre of Broomehill is dedicated to the Gussie explorers who opened up the Holland Track. Back in 1893, gold was discovered in Coolgardie and prospectors came from all over Australia to seek their fortunes. The only route available from Albany was via Northam and a shorter route was required. John Holland and his party set out from Broomehill in April 1893 to carve a track to Coolgardie, which would take about 2 weeks off the travelling time. They arrived there 2 months later, having covered 330 miles of unexplored country and cut the longest continuous track in WA. Today you can still follow the Holland Track, and detailed information and a map can be obtained from the Broomehill Shire. Best times to travel the track are autumn and particularly spring, in the wildflower season.
Now it's time for Tambellup. Not too far south of Broomehill, there's a road leads off to the left which takes you across to Narrogin. That turn off is coming up just now. It's also an alternative route to Albany. Go across through Narrogin and then down through the Stirling Ranges and the Chester Pass Road into Albany. And the signage that welcomes you into Tambellup is adorned with willy wagtails. The willy wagtails, I believe, signify friendship. Now again, the town is separated from the main road by the railway line. So the town is on the other side of the line. You need to turn off to go over there. Please do it.
The area around Tambellup was first settled by pastoralists in the late 1840s. The station was established when the Great Southern Hwy was opened in 1889 and the town site was gazetted in 1899. The town's main street is Norris Street, which was named after its first European settler, Josiah Norris, who was attracted to the area by its large stands of sandalwood. Today, the main industry in Tambellup is sheep farming, while sandalwood continues as a distant second. Much of the sandalwood is exported. The surrounding areas produce wheat and other cereal crops. The town is also a receival site for cooperative bulk handling. Gordon River has flooded several times since Tambellup was established, including a major flood in 1955 when the river rose 6 metres, resulting in some parts of the town being 1 metre underwater, and again in January 1982 when a decaying tropical cyclone passed over the catchment area feeding the Gordon River, causing it to flood the town. Much of the town, including the main street, was again covered to a depth of about 1 metre.
There are more public toilets in this town than most large towns. That one's in Diprose Park. Well, it's time to leave Tambellup. And it's time to go to school. But not just any old school. I'll tell you more shortly. We're about to turn down the Toolbrunup Road. It's just a few kilometres south of Tambellup. And do take these train signs seriously, because on this particular railway line there are trains running. Well, you get to the corner of Popanyinning Road and Toolbrunup Road and you turn to the right down Popanyinning Road. That's where we're heading right now. And just a little bit up the road here on the left, there's a dirt track going in to the bush. And this is the old Toolbrunup School. Well, normally we would head back to where we turned off, but there's no need to do that if you don't wish. You can do it, but we're going to continue down the Popanyinning Road now and rejoin the highway. So what a fascinating little place that school was. It's about 23 kilometres along the road from the Great Southern Hwy, and when you reach that Popanyinning Road corner, just follow what we showed you on the camera. Well worth a look. And now we rejoined the Great Southern Hwy. Finally, we're approaching Cranbrook. The highway basically passes straight through Cranbrook. The township is just off to the left. And we would turn left just there. We'll come back to that. Cranbrook is the gateway to the Stirlings. So what we're going to do now is take you out and show you part of the Stirling range. We're now approaching the Red Gum Pass turnoff. As you can see from the clear signage, that is the Stirling Range National Park. We're 24 from Cranbrook. Stirling Range Caravan Park is 34 kilometres straight on, as is Chester Pass Road. We're going to go up into the Red Gum Pass. The sign says loose gravel, so take your time, take it easy. Keep in mind there are kangaroos, emus, and other assorted wildlife in here. Probably the odd snake or two in the warmer season. Try to avoid them. It is their habitat after all. Sign indicating that this is a numbat release area, so again we're now adding an animal to what we need to look out for. Red Gum Springs to the left. It's a picnic area, no camping, no fires. Of course this is a national park, so no dogs. There are picnic tables here and a gas-fired barbecue. No lighting of fires obviously. And there's also a toilet. So back onto Red Gum Pass and continuing on. Stirling Range Drive. Now straight on, we'll take you through to Mount Barker, Kendanup. But to actually drive through the range, you now need to turn up onto the Stirling Range Drive. There's 42 kilometres of gravel road through here, if you decide to go all the way through to Chester Pass Road. We're only going to take you a little bit of the way in today, just to give you a taste of what it's all about. Now this is called the Western Lookout. Be careful for cars that might be coming out onto the road. Or indeed cars that might be coming out of the lookout. The turn off into this lookout is on top of a hill, so the chances are you will get someone coming from your left hand side who's not expecting you to be coming out. And there's the view straight down the road. As with many of these types of drives, you can tow your van with you and make the drive right across to Chester Pass Road, then go down there into Albany. Or alternatively, what we would suggest is leave your caravan at Cranbrook and drive out here and drive through the park, then turn around and come back again, because you've only seen the view one way, and it's equally as spectacular driving in the other direction. There are various picnic areas set up through the drive, and this first one we're coming up to here on the left is White Gum Flats. Again, picnic tables, just a nice little area to wander around in. Lovely park type setting here. But bring your food pre-cooked and preheated, because there's no fires through here. The Mount Magog is 200 metres down on the left hand side of the road. Signifies no caravans. You're about to find out why. And this is a one-way track. It is wildflower season in Western Australia as we film this. Now you know why you don't bring a caravan down here. There are camping tables, no camping, no fires. This is a walking trail up to the top of Mount Magog. So this is the Mount Magog walk. It's a class 5 classification. It's 856 metres tall and the distance to the summit is 3.5 kilometres, and you'll allow 3 or 4 hours to return. Steep gradients on the surface, may be rough and uneven or even wet and slippery. So it tells you what to do and what not to do. As I said, this is a one-way stretch. So you don't go back up the hill, you follow on through. And then we rejoin the main road. Not too much further on from the Mount Magog trail. There's another lookout, which we're about to hit. 200 metres ahead of us. And of course it's on a crest, so be careful of stuff coming the other way, obviously. Again, there is a walk trail to the top of the hill. So this is the central lookout, and it's as far as we're going to bring you. It's 400 metres to the top of to the lookout, 30-minute return I reckon, and we'll go up and have a bo peep at what it's all about. Well, there's the path leading onto the top of that hill, and we'll let you explore that one. Got to leave something for you to do. You know, some things absolutely astound me. Walking down the trail and there's a cigarette butt on the ground, and they wonder why we have bushfires in these areas. I'm not saying don't smoke, but how about doing something sensible like carrying a small tin and put your butts in the tin when you've finished your fag, and then dispose of them properly in a rubbish bin or something later. In fact, that would be a great social thing to do even in town, instead of just chucking them on the ground and treading on them. Smokers tend to be the world's worst litterers. End of rant. We've shown you all that we're going to show you in this part of the range. We're heading back now towards Cranbrook. Keep in mind the road does go all the way through to the Chester Pass Road, and it's then bitumen all the way through to Albany. If you want to get to Bluff Knoll, you have to go all the way through. It's on the other side of Chester Pass Road. It's a wonderful day out, so leave your van, I'd suggest, at Cranbrook and come and have a look. Again, Cranbrook is one of those towns where the major road runs straight through, and the actual town area is off to the side, close to the railway line.
The settlement grew after it was one of the original railway stations on the Great Southern Hwy when the railway opened in 1889 and was gazetted a town site in 1899. The name is taken from the town of Cranbrook in Kent, England. It is believed to have been named by Mr J.A. Wright, who was manager of the Western Australian Land Company which built the railway. The town is a cooperative bulk handling receival site. We haven't shown you the Suki Hill Lookout, which is the last formation in the Stirling Ranges. Located 5 kilometres east of the town site, off the Salt River Road, you can take in the view to the Salt Lakes to the north and east, farmlands to the west, and panoramic view of the Stirling Range to the south. The area is abundant in wildflowers in spring. The Cranbrook Museum was once the station master's house. Built around 1889, it is the oldest house still standing in town and is located beside the railway station.
Well, that's pretty much the end of the low traffic cruising situation. As 3 kilometres down the road, we joined the Albany Hwy, and the next 80 or so kilometres you'll be dealing with trucks and traffic. Mount Barker 37, Albany 87. Mount Barker is another one of these towns where they built a bypass. The road used to go through the main street of the town. They built the bypass, so as you cross the railway line, it goes straight on the Albany Hwy. It's along there that you will find at the old railway station the information centre and dump point. We're going to take a run through the town. That's the bypass going straight on.
Mount Barker is the centre of the Plantagenet wine growing area. There is much to see and do. However, that will be dealt with in a future project of the region, as this film is about the Great Southern Hwy. It must be mentioned though that Mount Barker is the gateway to the Porongruts, and it is recommended that you consider diverting your trip and maybe even spending a night or two at the Porongrup Caravan Park.
Mount Barker Country Bakery is an excellent place to stop, great bakery. Rejoin the Albany Hwy for the final 50 kilometre leg of our journey. Now we're approaching Narrogin. Now there appears to be nothing here, but the town itself is over on the railway line, which is to our right. However, there is a feature here that's well worth dropping in and having a look at. And you don't have to go in to town to have a look at it. You can access it from the Albany Hwy. There's a sign just on the left-hand side of the road there now, vehicles entering and cricket ground. And right opposite the overtaking lane sign, there's the turn off into the cricket ground. There's the cricket bat, eh? Now all cricket grounds have a fence. The difference here is that the fence is made with cricket bats. This is where you can contribute if you're interested. If you got a cricket bat you don't want, you can contact the Narrogin Cricket Club and you can send the bat here, and it will be included in the fence, which was hopefully eventually to go right around the ground.
They don't have to be fancy, just any old cricket bat will do the job. There are a couple of things you need to know about Albany, but probably the most important is that it is devoid of traffic lights. Albany does not have a set of traffic lights. The town is controlled by roundabouts, and not just four-way roundabouts. It's unique in that the main roundabout as you enter into town is actually a five-way roundabout. So probably be a good idea just to brush up on the rules of roundabouts, and that is that if you're exiting in the first exit points, you can use the left-hand lane to exit from. If you're going to exit from the third, fourth or fifth, you must use the right-hand lane. It's as simple as that. The hill to your right is Mount Melville. The hill to the left is Mount Clarence, and its extension, which is Mount Adelaide, which is where you'll find the forts and the Anzac Centre. There is a lookout on top of Mount Melville from which you can actually see stuff. Welcome to Albany, Western Australia's first settlement. If you enjoyed this video, there's over 200 more just like it on this channel. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, and we'll let you know when our next video is available. Thanks for watching.